Yeah, so I actually used to be an incel for not a short period of time, like years and years and years. And I sort of got sucked into it by spending a whole lot of time on 4chan and YouTube and the like, and just falling down rabbit hole after rabbit hole until I was at like the deepest circle of the incel cult, you could say. And it got to the point where I really did feel like there was no way for me to leave. There was no way for me to escape, basically. Basically, if you didn't buy into the ideology like wholesale, like believe in the lookism stuff, believe that, it's over for us, like there's no hope for us, you would basically be considered like a fake cell. And at that point, you would be socially isolated from the rest of the group. And so there was definitely a lot of like fear involved. For me, I later found out that the reason that I was so drawn to that stuff was because since I'm transgender, and I didn't even believe in that at the time, but I really didn't feel a connection with my own body or my own self. And I had never even tried to ask someone out or like find a partner or something like that. I just assumed that it would be impossible for me because of like all these like incel studies and these lookism studies and stuff like that I was reading, like this stuff about like LMS and that type of stuff, like these very like obscure like black pill ideologies. And yeah, so eventually I managed to escape, funnily enough, from inceldom through transition and partially through transmaxing. And this is something I've actually noticed is pretty common in this transmaxing community, is like people who transition for both transmaxing and like more traditional transition reasons. And that was definitely my story as well.
Yeah, and what I do suspect is that if you had put effort into dating as a male, you probably would have had some success, to be honest, and you probably think to realize that now. But if you don't even try, you might think that you don't have a chance, when in reality, if you used to put effort into it, if you lower your standards, are more open-minded to dating female, besides your like perfect ideal, you shouldn't have too much of an issue in the most cases.
Yeah, I think if I did try, I probably would have had some success, if I'm being honest. Like, I wasn't even that bad looking, but I was at the point where like my brain was completely consumed by cult ideology, and I couldn't see any differently.
I also think that if you have gender dysphoria, this might cause you to have a very negative outlook, a very negative view of your own experience, because you don't really like what you see in the mirror, and this might cause some people to think they are less attractive than they are because of that dysphoria.
Absolutely, I definitely would mistake my masculinity for ugliness because ever since puberty, like I just really hated my masculine features and anything that reminded me that I was male. So I would see that and that would just confirm to me how ugly I was. Even though like I'll look back at my old pictures now and I don't see it at all. I mean, I'm happy. I'm very happy that I'm transitioned now, but like I don't see any ugliness in my old self when I look at my old pictures.
Yeah, and this is not surprising really. I think a lot of people go through that where because they want to be more like a female, they might struggle with dating for those reasons as well. And I am aware that there are males who genuinely do struggle with dating. But if you haven't tried hard to actually find a girlfriend and failed, you don't really know for sure if, like, until you actually go out there, and this can be like dating apps in real life, just everything.
Yeah. I mean, I had heard about like how bad dating apps are and like how it would be impossible for me to find someone on there. And I literally have never even downloaded one. Like,
Yeah, you should honestly. I think they are great. I actually had some success with them. Like it works.
yeah, well, I mean, after my transition, it was much easier for me to find people for sure. Like, it just seemed to sort of happen that I would get into relationships. But I think if I was to go back and try dating like before transition, I definitely would at least try the dating apps and see what I could find, instead of just giving up before I even start, which is what I did for like all aspects of my dating life.
It could also be that deep down they didn't really desire to be successful as a male in the first place. Maybe you desire to be more like a female, and maybe this is why you didn't really try either. It could be a reason as well, just speculating.
Yeah, so I think there was definitely an aspect of, like, I guess you could say jealousy involved, where I would see, and I would feel really jealous of them. And I would see transgender women and I would feel really jealous of them. And I would feel like if I was to date them and like fill in that masculine role, I would probably feel pretty bad about myself in general. And that's one thing that also scared me away.
Something I find curious about incel spaces is that they are super against transvaxing too, even though it would work.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want it to work. They want to stay in their little bubbles generally because they're so stuck in the cult like thinking. Any sort of solution is generally frowned upon and instantly dismissed.
Yeah. There's this very big thing that tends to happen with people that are like stuck in very depressive situations. Oftentimes, it's much more daunting to try anything else. And they would much rather everything to fail so then they can continue to wallow in their own pity. So try to like stop yourself and like not have that happen to you.
Yeah, like, let's assume that what they believe is true, that they will never find a girlfriend as a male. Then in that case, why shouldn't they transition? There's no reason not to. But like logically
Yeah.
speaking, like unless there's some like ideology you're trying to pursue for some dumb reason, why should you transition if you have no chance as a male?
Yeah, exactly. I think that transmaxing, like just from the people that I know and the people that I used to talk to, I think that transmaxing would be a great option for a large number of them because a lot of them seem to have body dysmorphia regarding like their less masculine jawlines and this sort of thing. And I think that honestly that would help them more than anything with transition. And
yeah. There's something about incel spaces that are like very much like toxic masculinity, where they think transmaxing isn't a solution because then you're not part of the problem anymore. It's like cheating the system or like just giving in to becoming an F word or an F slur, as they'd say.
a lot of these people too are like really tied in with like far right ideologies, and they'll have this view that transgender doesn't even exist. Transgender is just a man wearing a dress and this sort of thing. Like that sort of rhetoric will come up often. So I feel like a lot of these people would see any sort of transmaxing as like completely off the table because they don't even believe in the premise that trans people exist. And if they think about trans people, they just feel disgusting because of their political beliefs.
Honestly,
Absolutely.
like just from like a perspective of like trying transitioning, I feel like it'd be very insightful for a lot of these incels of like the do's and don'ts of how to treat a woman if they are like becoming the woman and getting treated poorly by these other men. And it could actually help them with like their own dating life if they want to like continue as a male and see that they don't want to be a female.
Yeah, it would definitely be an interesting thought experiment. I think they would start to see maybe women as more human than they currently do because it seems like a lot of incels see women as an entirely different species. Like the way that our female feelings work and that sort of stuff, they think is like completely separate from their male human experience. When in reality, like there's a lot of parallels and there's a lot of overlap there.
What some cults do is that they make you alienated from friends and other social connections. It can be both like intentional, where they encourage you to cut ties with like family members, friends in real life and all that. But it can also be that because of that extremist ideology, other people will start distancing themselves from you.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it is indirect. Like, you'll be shamed for, like, having friends or, you know, making social connections. Like, you'll be called, like, a fake cell, or, like, you'll be called, like, a normal fag and stuff like that. And also, like, with the content thing, like, I remember there was a time where I was watching hours and hours and hours a day of, like, black pill videos and stuff, and just basically, like, feeling depressed all day, just scrolling and scrolling through these feeds and, like, reading these black pill chat rooms and stuff, and those were the only people I had interacted with at the time. So, or, like,
Jeez.
basically, there was nobody else in my social circle other than these incel people, who at the time I thought were my friends, but, and I mean, a lot of them also were just being sucked into the same spiral as me, so I'm not trying to place all the blame on them, but it was definitely extremely harmful for me for years and years.
Yeah, something I
Thankfully,
noticed with incel spaces is that they glorify failure, that it's like the more you fail you are as a male, the better you are. So there are people who say that, oh, I'm like a virgin, other people say, oh, I'm like a kissless virgin, and other people say, I'm like a kissless hand, hoodless, hugless virgin. So it like continues like that. It's more and more ridiculous.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like Incel Olympics, like who's the biggest loser? That
that's
person is considered the coolest.
That's exactly what I was gonna say is, yeah, it seems like they're basically committing social self-harm and they're like going as severe they can as like a competition. And a big thing about the people getting recruited into these cults is half of the time they're like already in a place of isolation, feeling like there's like no one to accept them. And that's how come they go to like some of these cults or even like religious places and like get swallowed into like the whole thoughts of Christianity and stuff just because there's nothing else really going on. So where do you go? Well, I mean, the church has something going on every Sunday.
Yeah, whoever's gonna promise you a message that basically tell you that they understand how you feel and that they know the truth and that they want to teach it to you. And I find that, like, in terms of like cult violence and stuff like that, like the incel cult definitely has that in the form of like these shooters and stuff like that are glorified as like the highest tier, like the most like ordained people in the incel community are these like people who just go way too far and do this crazy stuff.
Yeah, the literal psychopaths. Ah, yes, the most prestige of incel, the highest of rank.
They're considered like saints, like they're literally called saints.
Oh my god.
It's also
Absolutely
important
incredible.
here to separate males having dating issues with the incel spaces as they exist, because sure, people in incel spaces tend to have dating issues, and they want to like lump everyone into their group and say that, oh, like everyone is struggling or a lot of males are struggling. But there is a difference between merely struggling with dating but trying to not join a cult, and joining a cult that makes the situation 10 times worse than it already was.
Yeah, you get marketed it as a solution, but it just cranks up the problem tenfold. Yeah, I find like the best thing that somebody can do if they're stuck in this type of situation is to take these baby steps every day. Try and be a little bit better of a person each day. Try and improve your situation just a little bit each day. And try and be more courageous a little bit each day. And one day you'll just find that you'll reach a point where you're so much better than you used to be that you'll just blossom into your new self. And that's what happened to me. And it was definitely the most profound and meaningful experience of my life. And I hope that everyone who's stuck in these types of cults that can one day also reach that sort of state and have that same experience. It just takes saving a little bit of courage each day and trying a little bit harder each day. And, you know, one day you will ascend.
Yeah, and often when you think there is something you cannot do for whatever reason, that's simply not true, and maybe later on you do it with ease. And this can be like things that people say are not even possible, and then you achieve it anyway.
Yeah, sometimes even a change of mind's like very useful where I've heard so many stories where people like fall in love, and it's usually at places or times where you think it never happened. So perhaps not focusing too much of like getting a partner and just working on like being the best self you can be very helpful. And perhaps you too will find someone that you forever love out of nowhere in a random situation.
That's how it happens. Yeah, absolutely. Some of the people who looked the worst when they were male, like, and they start really going hard with their transition and like really trying their best, they end up looking like the most beautiful women. Some of the most beautiful transgender women I've ever met.
And there are so many people are successful in various phases, like not just with dating, but with everything. There is no reason to think that it cannot be you. Of course, it can be you.
Of course, yeah. Anyone can achieve it if they truly put their heart to it and they truly want it.
And I really like to see how people are improving when they go here and they post their update, how they're doing better.
Oh yeah, it's so great to see the positivity. It's really heartwarming.
And I really want to make this place as an alternative to going to a church or joining some weird cult.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can gain a sense of meaning through community. And of course, transmaxing is not the only way to escape from a bad, lonely situation, but I think for a lot of people, it's going to be a really amazing solution and something that's truly, truly life-changing.